chiummo che se ne va, the lead that goes away. A story by Ciro Discepolo. It was the time of the new Gutenberg revolution, when personal computer printing was about to supplant traditional linotype printing, and I still had some letterhead to have prepared using the traditional system. So it was that, on a slightly rainy autumn afternoon, I walked up a winding street in the old historic center of Naples. I'd often seen as I passed by a small printer's shop overlooking the street, next to other low-rises and without a sidewalk. I entered, immediately hit by the strong smell, for me it had never been a smell, of ink, gasoline, and petrol. The room, no more than 4 by 4 meters, served as a sounding board for the commotion of the printing press, which churned out one sheet after another, as I'd always seen it and as perhaps I would never see again. The little man wore a black coat that matched the color of the 3 linotype machines, the ink, and it seemed even his mood. He was almost bald, thin, in his 50s, but perhaps only 40, badly worn. He wiped his hands with a rag resting on the horizontal steel shaft of the glorious Ideal 30, the hand pedal, and looked with little interest, but without losing any insight, at what I was showing him. I took the opportunity to look around. Nothing around me seemed to give me any insight into the man. There were no pictures with famous or simply overused phrases like, "Don't give credit to anyone," nor even calendars with naked women or apotropaic objects. The walls were bare, smooth, dirty, interrupted only occasionally by electrical wires that dropped here and there. A small wooden crucifix seemed to be the man's only abdication of custom, his perhaps unconvinced conformity to the customs of society. Meanwhile, the Heidelberg Stella compressor had sucked in a sheet of paper and held it up. The 2 clamps grabbed it and, with a clockwise motion, placed it under the press. Observing the craftsman, I noticed that at times he must have felt twinges, because he was taking a breath and his narrow shoulders were tensing. He was clearly suffering, coupled, I seemed to understand, with an underlying sadness, a taciturn and withdrawn disposition. "How many do you need?" "I don't know, it depends on the price." We agreed on the weight and quality of the paper. I chose Times Roman as the font, which remains my favorite to this day. I noticed that the man was talking but thinking of something else, and clearly it was something far more important than the letterhead. His manner, the order that reigned in that cramped space, the very order inscribed in the work he did, everything betrayed his past, almost an entire life spent in a few square meters of space, with time marked by the piston of the printing press. I wondered, did he realize that everything is changing? How will he handle this technological revolution that already allows you to create your own business cards at home, perhaps in color, with photographs and drawings? This Christian who has lived his entire life surrounded by lead, what will he do when the lead disappears around him? "Come by no later than Wednesday, because then I'll be closed for a while. I have to go to Cardarelli for some tests," he said, interrupting my somewhat disorganized flow of thoughts. I took my leave, shaking his sweaty hand, which didn't respond to the squeeze. It had grown dark, and I went downstairs feeling a little melancholy, as I do with every autumn sunset that seems to threaten the arrival of winter. A week later, at the barber's, by one of those supposedly significant coincidences, the topic was Don Ferdinando, the printer. He's been having stomach pains for several months now, and he never got around to getting tested. Now they've gotten worse, and they've admitted him to the Cardarelli hospital for tests. In all the years I've known him, he's never had a party at work. He's a precise, conscientious guy, always working, never distracted, and I've never seen him laugh or joke. I asked if he had children, if he was married. No, we've known each other for many years, and I've never heard of women in his life. What do you want? He's a reserved man, a man of few words, even a bit of a bear. I didn't think about him any more, and in the weeks that followed I didn't notice that the shop was closed when I passed it on my way to Portalba or Piazza Dante. A few months later, however, I noticed that where the printing shop once stood, there was a takeaway note. The title of this short story, inspired by a true story, is not a plagiarism of the beautiful poem that appears at the entrance to Il Mattino on the old printing press, but is a deliberate reference to the same inscription by the printer Salvatore Di Meglio,